A tireless Vilnius dreamer, Wincenty Ignacy Marewicz.
Has anyone today ever heard of an 18th century writer named Wincenty Ignacy Marewicz, whose widow later sold 140 volumes of her late husband's work to the public library? Marewicz was born a noble, but unfortunately not a rich one. Hoping to win over the heart of his beloved Laura, also of nobility, Marewicz began to write and eventually staged his debut play called The Love of Virtue, finding performers, organising production, and acting a role in his own play. But the gates to the convent where Laura and her aunt lived never opened. Marewicz never won her heart. His second matchmaking attempt in Warsaw also ended in failure. Marewicz returned to Vilnius, but he never gave up. His creative journey continued. He wrote about his failed matchmaking stories in a book titled The Unfulfilled Project, in which he also presented ideas on family life and child rearing, which he hoped to realise someday, if only the women he favoured would appreciate his virtues and not reject him for his poverty. But to his contemporaries, Marewicz's excessive naivety and sincerity must have seemed a bit comical, and his prolific work was met with considerable ridicule, even earning him the shameful label of graphomaniac. But Marewicz's enthusiasm withstood both harsh criticism and scorn. He believed he had to write, and so he wrote, and wrote, and wrote. All sorts of texts. Poetry, prose, political projects and essays, patriotic verse, erotica, romantic comedies and operas. Marewicz's proposals for political reforms and his ironic opera about Russian politics were reprinted by publishing houses as many as 7 times in 3 years. Audiences packed performance of the opera on a Vilnius stage, making the production the most popular work of Marewicz's artistic career. His literary work eventually began to produce actual results. Financial support from Vilnius Castellan Maciej Radziwiłł, to whom Marewicz dedicated one of his works, was so generous that it allowed the author to buy a house and land near Lukiškės. Finally, Marewicz could marry, and he did. His idyllic life was interrupted, however, by the invasion of the Russian army. According to one Warsaw newspaper, the writer donated his home and land, his books and 269 zlotys, and pledged to support military service. Of course, the naive Marewicz fulfilled his promise and took part in the rebellion led by Tadeusz Kościuszko, and his wife joined as well. Thank God both survived the rebellion. While we won't find much in any schoolbook about this writer today, Wincenty Ignacy Marewicz went on to live a long, challenging and interesting life. In his own words, love made him a writer. If I had never known love, I would have been stronger, happier, and more at peace. But I would have remained cloaked in a fog of uncertainty and would have sat, unknown to the world, in a corner. But now, everyone calls me a writer.